Mom is a nuisance. Do you know how many times I felt miserable because of our family's poverty? I don't want to be ridiculed for having a poor mother at my important wedding. It's been almost 30 years since she left Mark, carrying her then baby daughter in her arms. The daughter she raised single-handedly has come to despise her impoverished upbringing and has chosen to live a life of pretense. Despite it being her own wedding, the daughter detests the idea of her mother being seen there. Shaken, the mother responded with a trembling voice. Her name is Karen. She graduated from college and has been working as an office worker for about 30 years. Perhaps the first major turning point in my life was my marriage. I met Mark at a university club. It was more about hanging out and drinking than being active. It was a symbol of her enjoyable college days. Mark, who was 3 years her senior, quickly became close due to shared interests, and their relationship soon turned romantic. Their relationship continued smoothly, and he proposed to her upon her graduation. After getting married, they were blessed with a daughter, leading to truly happy days. However, this period of bliss was short-lived. The second turning point was Mark's affair. It had been about 7 years since they got married. Though their relationship had grown distant as their daughter grew older, he chose to be a lover to a younger woman over his responsibilities as a father. The despair, anger, and anxiety about the future she felt upon discovering this are still vivid in her memory. Moreover, the affair was with a woman from a client company who also had a husband. The affair became known at work and caused problems. By the time she found out, rumors had spread, and Mark's position at his company was essentially gone. After receiving a disciplinary action, we decided to divorce following discussions. I didn't want to burden my young daughter with the delicate matter of her father's infidelity. I thought it best to choose the path of a single mother, even if it meant hardships. I packed her things and left Mark with my baby daughter, Jennifer, in her arms. After the divorce, we moved into a small apartment. The first few years were particularly tough, as Jennifer was at an age that required constant attention, and we faced financial and emotional hardships. The child support from Mark, who had been transferred to a lower-paying department, was meager and soon began to falter, becoming unreliable. Supporting the household and covering Jennifer's educational and living expenses alone required a Herculean effort. Fortunately, there were other women in similar circumstances at the apartment, and they would take turns watching each other's children while working overtime late into the night. Even after returning home, I continued to work from home, gradually saving money. Jennifer did her best to help out as much as she could. Still, I must have felt lonely. When she started elementary school, she would sometimes say things like this. Mom should just marry a rich guy or a CEO. Then I could go to ballet and singing lessons. I was raising Jennifer single-handedly, without remarrying, and I had no intention of getting married again. But I didn't want Jennifer to feel poor or lonely. I managed to persuade an acquaintance from work to teach piano at a low cost, and got secondhand items from families with slightly older children. Even if people gossiped about my being greedy, I could endure it because Jennifer's healthy growth was her joy. Jennifer, who graduated from college, became independent 5 years ago. She knew that Jennifer had been enjoying her freedom and hardly spent any time at home since her student days, but after getting a job and moving out, Jennifer showed no signs of coming back. That was enough for me. My college days were filled with happy times with Mark. Jennifer has her own way of doing things, and knowing her, the clingy type that she is, I understand that she would come running to me at the slightest sign of trouble, even before it could truly be considered a problem. Yes, Jennifer grew up to be quite dependent. I intended to raise her without any hardships, but she didn't allow selfishness. However, she turned out to be quite vain and dependent. She despised the old apartment and strongly aspired to live a glamorous, high-end life and work in the city. On social media, she would post edited images of a hotel suite she visited once, pretending she had been there multiple times. She portrayed herself as enjoying luxurious meals and spending time with handsome men every day. As a mother, it was worrisome, but she hesitated to interfere with her adult Jennifer's life. She decided to quietly observe. There was little contact from Jennifer, but from her social media. It seemed I was enjoying my life. I was enjoying my newfound single life, finding new hobbies and cherishing time with friends, bringing leisure and joy to my life. One day, when I returned from work, there was an email from Jennifer. The message was very simple, stating only that she was engaged. Jennifer's engagement filled her with surprise, but soon enough, happiness bubbled up. Eager to offer her congratulations, I immediately called her. "Oh yeah, thank you." The response from Jennifer wasn't as warm as I had hoped. Confused, I asked about the man Jennifer was engaged to. With a wedding, there would be many occasions for parents to be involved, but Jennifer was evasive in her responses. If there's anything I can do, please let me know. I'd like to meet his parents too, maybe say hello or something. Mom, that kind of thing isn't necessary anymore. Times have changed, so you don't need to come. The voice on the other end was Jennifer's, but there was an awkwardness, as if I was hiding something. The distant attitude made me more perplexed. It seemed like Jennifer was determined to keep me away from her fiancé. Though concerned by her attitude, my wish for Jennifer's happiness remained unchanged. When I asked Jennifer for details about the wedding, she sighed and gave me the date, but I knew even without looking at the calendar. I was about to apologize when Jennifer cut her off, seemingly irritated. I really wanted to be there to celebrate with you, but I have an unavoidable commitment on that day, so I can't make it. It's my wedding, it doesn't involve you, Mom. I was planning to have it with just Mark and close family, so I'm not inviting you to the ceremony. That's okay, right? I was taken aback. This implies that I, her mother, am not considered family. But when did Jennifer start speaking such harsh words? I couldn't hide my surprise at Jennifer's reaction, which could only be described as rejection. So you really don't want me at your wedding, Jennifer? I asked again, only to be met with a heavy sigh and an exasperated retort from Jennifer. Don't come to the wedding. You've always been a nuisance to me. Do you know how many times I felt miserable because of our family's poverty? I don't want to be ridiculed for having a poor mother at my important wedding. I was at a loss for words. The pain in my heart was immense, and I felt tears welling up from deep within. I had sensed Jennifer viewed her and their impoverished household as a burden. You don't want me involved, right? That's fine. While my feelings of responsibility as a mother and prioritizing Jennifer's happiness remain unchanged, if she regards me as a source of shame, perhaps I have no choice but to understand her words. As I was at a loss for words, Jennifer's tone changed as she spoke. If you want to celebrate, I'll accept money from you. I'll come to pick it up a week before the wedding, so please have it ready. With those words, the call with Jennifer ended. That night, I couldn't stop crying due to the shock. The joy I felt when Jennifer, whom I raised with care, became independent, seemed like a distant memory. I felt there must be some complex situation behind Jennifer's attitude, but I didn't know how to uncover it. The next day, I reached out to someone, and before I knew it, a week before Jennifer's wedding arrived. Around noon, the doorbell rang, and my smiling daughter, who had come to collect the congratulatory money as arranged, stood there. Still the same old cramped and shabby apartment. I don't plan on staying long, you know. So where's the money? As soon as I entered, she relaxed in the living room and asked for the money. I silently handed over the prepared money, still not knowing whom she was marrying. She looked at me, seemingly amused by my unfriendly demeanor, and reiterated, "Don't come, okay? Actually, it would be a nuisance, so I really don't want you there. You understand, right, Mom? Poverty is just so dreadful." To which I calmly replied, "I won't be going, because I'll be attending my real daughter's wedding." Jennifer stared at me wide-eyed. What do you mean?" Unable to hide her surprise. "Margaret," I quietly responded. "Your sister. Since the divorce, she was taken in by your father, so you've never met her." That was the commitment I had a week later. I was invited to the wedding of Margaret, Jennifer, born 30 years ago. I couldn't secure custody of both sisters due to lack of financial resources. Mark convinced me that if he returned to his parents' home, there would be grandparents to help care for the child. However, Mark's family home was quite far away, and even with permission, it was difficult to visit and nearly impossible to bring the sisters together. Jennifer knew of her sister's existence due to disputes during the divorce, but she knew almost nothing about her. It's quite the coincidence that the weddings of the sisters are scheduled for the same day. But since you don't want me there, I'll gladly attend Margaret's instead, just as you wished. You're joking, right? However, Jennifer reacted with anger, her eyes narrowing. What's that supposed to mean? Even if you say sister, she's a stranger to me. The bond between parent and child is broken, so why should I have to go? Calling someone a stranger out of the blue? You have no common sense. Indeed, from her perspective, having never met her, the older sister might as well be a stranger. But it's not like there were no opportunities for them to meet. I had tried to create an environment where the sisters could meet face to face. But it was Jennifer who refused or ignored those attempts at the last minute. Although Mark was uncooperative, there were arrangements made during the divorce. Moreover, Margaret had always wanted to meet her sister. It's natural considering there's a 4-year age difference, and the older sister has clear memories of her younger sister. So Margaret's more important to you than my wedding? You're the worst, Mom, you're the worst! After behaving so capriciously towards me, Jennifer threw a tantrum like a child. All I could do was laugh. After all, I am the mother who raised this child. It's not much different from when she cried wanting a toy. We've lived together all this time, so my happiness should obviously be more important, and yet you only care about Margaret? She's from a wealthy family, right? That's so unfair! Jennifer started crying out of anger towards me. I wanted to understand her feelings, but it seemed too late for that now. She was only angry because things were going her way, which made it impossible to sympathize. So, should I give up attending Margaret's wedding and go to yours instead? That's obviously not okay, right? But she continued to be opposed to me attending her wedding until the end. Jennifer finally stumbled over her words, muttering similar complaints a few times. Then, suddenly, she stood up and left the house. In the end, an invitation to Jennifer's wedding never arrived. A week later, I attended Margaret's wedding as originally planned. The grown-up bride, in her beautiful wedding dress, ran up to me. Tears were already welling up in her beautifully made-up eyes. Mom, thank you for coming. I'm so glad I could show you my wedding like this. I promise to be even happier, making up for all the hardships I faced. On the day of Margaret's wedding, I was filled with joy and deep emotions. Although the traditional family structure was lost, I was still able to celebrate her new beginning and be there for an important moment in her life. Considering what happened with Jennifer, this made me truly happy. The heartfelt wedding was attended by many of her friends, and I reflected on Margaret's growth. The sight of the bride and groom supporting each other filled my heart. Not taking family for granted, but supporting and respecting each other and continuously wishing for happiness. That must be the most important thing in living together. 2 weeks after Margaret's wedding, I received a call from Jennifer. She hesitated to get to the point, trying to prolong the conversation, which gave me a bad feeling. I patiently waited for her to speak, and finally, I was able to hear about the looming troubles from Jennifer. Actually, among the guests Mark invited, there was your boss. She mentioned the name, and I confirmed it was my boss. Apparently, her fiancé had been acquainted with him through work. I remember being approached by my boss a few days after the wedding. He was puzzled by my absence, but since I was forbidden by Jennifer to attend, I avoided giving details and brushed it off. I remember thinking what a strange coincidence it was at the time. That person, during the wedding, in front of me, Stephen and his parents asked, "What happened to your mom?" It was embarrassing. Hearing Jennifer's somber voice made me feel pain. My boss can be somewhat insensitive at times, but the problem didn't end there. It turns out that Jennifer had told her fiancé, Stephen, and even her father, William, and mother, Emily, that her mother had passed away from an illness. That's why she didn't want me at the wedding. In front of her fiancé's family, Jennifer had portrayed herself as a hard-working individual who, after her mom's death, following the divorce, managed to survive on her own. Naturally, Stephen's family was confused when they heard such a thing during the wedding. When they pressed her for details, she became flustered, and her web of lies began to unravel. So, the story about your mom passing away from an illness was all a lie? And you also instructed her not to come to the wedding? You lied to your son and me? But Mom went to my older sister's wedding, who lives with my dad after the divorce. She should have prioritized me. Lying about someone's death and not attending are completely different matters. I can't believe Jennifer would lie like that. We need to have a serious discussion about this after the wedding. Stephen's family was furious to find out about the lie that I was dead and confronted Jennifer vehemently. After the wedding, a meeting was held, and Jennifer, wanting to hide her own circumstances, refused even to contact me. Realizing they couldn't have a further discussion with her stubborn attitude, Stephen's side called off the engagement and demanded compensation for the breach, along with the expenses for the wedding venue. The engagement is broken off? Despite the reception already having taken place, since the marriage itself was nullified, they demanded full reimbursement for the incurred expenses. Various reasons can lead to a broken engagement, but lies and secrets by the fiancé are common grounds for calling it off. Jennifer's lie about her only relative, me, being dead must have caused significant anger and disappointment in Stephen's family. The demanded compensation amounted to a considerable sum. It would be tough for Jennifer, who had just started working, especially since I heard she had quit the large corporation she joined, thinking she would be getting married. I was bombarded with new information, causing me a headache. Jennifer was also kicked out of the house she shared with Stephen and had no savings. Essentially, she was calling to ask me to take on her burdens. So, Mom, you're living alone now, right? You must have saved money while I wasn't there, right? So, I'm coming back to live with you, okay? Her entitled attitude, without a clear apology or the willingness to take on debt, left me astounded. But you said having a poor mother was embarrassing, right? I just said that in the heat of the moment. You never apologized for lying or for what you lied about. If you had sincerely faced the situation, I might have considered using my limited savings to help. But you said you didn't want anything to do with your poor, moneyless mother, so I won't provide financial support. I refused her plea for help before she could even fully ask. Furthermore, also, I've moved, so going to my old address would be pointless, I told her. I had planned to update her on my new address and other details after the wedding, thinking she was busy, but this time, my delay turned out to be fortunate. What's that? I wasn't informed. You never tell me anything. Not about Margaret's wedding or anything. Are we even family? Stop acting all high and mighty like a mother. I could say the same to you. I am your mother, but you never told me anything. I don't even know what your former fiancé's name or face. Yet you only come to me when you need money. It's embarrassing. The one who's truly sad here is me. Jennifer, shaking with anger, lashed out with her heightened emotions, but I remained calm and ended the call. After that, if I left my phone on, I would receive endless calls from Jennifer. After much deliberation, I made the difficult decision to block her calls. Desperate to find my whereabouts, Jennifer, with her dwindling funds, seemed to have hired a detective to track down Mark, presumably thinking he might have more money than herself. The plan was to split the cost of finding me between the two of them or to have her father bear it. However, unbeknownst to me, Mark was facing his own set of challenges. He had left Margaret in the care of his grandmother at his family home and seemed to neglect her. Around the time Margaret started working, he became engrossed in gambling and quickly accumulated debt. His parents at the family home had passed away quite some time ago. He quickly squandered the small inheritance and, in his desperation, Mark started going to Margaret, who was in her prime working years, to ask for money. After the divorce, I changed all my contact information when Margaret turned 20. I had cut off communication with Mark, but Margaret and I secretly kept in touch, so I was aware of all these developments and offered advice. Despite my willingness, my financial situation prevented me from offering much help. Margaret sought a lawyer on her own, and after much struggle, severed ties with her father. As a result, I was the only family member present at Margaret's wedding, which is why I felt it was imperative to attend. Jennifer, through the detective, reconnected with Mark. Despite being happy to see her since she was a baby, he began to demand money from Jennifer whenever possible, now that they were in contact again. Jennifer, with no means to spare, fends off her father's persistent demands while trying to make ends meet with a part-time job and repaying debts, including alimony. She now leads a life of poverty and hardship similar to what I experienced. As for my move, it was prompted by a job transfer to a new branch, recognizing my long service. The apartment was quite far, but the company covered the moving expenses due to it being a work-related relocation. The new condominium is much more spacious and nicer than before, with most of the rent covered by the company. Coincidentally, it's also closer to where Margaret and Mark live. So there was no reason for me to refuse the transfer. Now it's become a monthly tradition for Margaret to visit me in my new home. I've also had the chance to properly meet and greet Margaret's husband. Margaret's foster parents, who were once Mark's parents-in-law at his family home, have already passed away, and she is estranged from her father. Although we are separated legally, I have become one of the few relatives she has left, as she has no other family to turn to. Mark was moved to tears during our meeting, grateful for the opportunity. It was evident how wonderful a person she had married, and the happy family they were building. Overwhelmed with emotion, we shook hands tearfully, while Margaret smiled bashfully. I intend to watch over Margaret and Mark's happiness, offering help when needed and walking this journey together.